My grandmother gave me a penthouse for my birthday, but my mother tried to take it away from me to please her new husband. Hi everyone. 3 days ago I turned 15, and my grandmother gave me a very special and amazing gift. She transferred ownership of her penthouse to me. My grandmother doesn't live there herself. She has a house in the suburbs, but she has owned this apartment for a couple of years and sometimes stays there when she comes to the city. I was absolutely thrilled because the past year has been absolutely terrible for me. First, my dad left our family. He had always been a terrible workaholic and never found time for either me or my mom. But even so, my parents' separation was a huge shock for me. My mom didn't even tell me about it until my dad quietly moved out. Almost a year ago, it turned out that they had already filed for divorce. By that point, they had decided they could no longer live together because my dad was too overwhelmed with everything. What exactly he was so overwhelmed with was never explained to me. He didn't even say goodbye to me in person. After he moved out, he sent me one last message. Behave yourself. That was it. I never saw him again. Soon my parents officially divorced. My mom got the house and full custody of me and my brother. My dad kept visitation rights, but he never used them, so I have no idea what's going on with him now. And as if all that wasn't enough, about 2 months ago my mom told me that she had been seeing some man for almost 3 months. Let's call him Daniel. They were in love and she didn't want to waste time because she's not getting any younger, so they got engaged. I didn't even have time to properly process the fact that my mom had a new boyfriend. In the same breath, she told me she was engaged and that this man would become my stepfather. It was too much. I was very unhappy because in my opinion, 5 months is nowhere near enough time to really get to know someone you're planning to marry. But she told me not to worry. A couple of weeks later, she introduced me to him, and he seemed very closed off and cold toward me. However, with my brother, he behaved completely differently and was very playful. At first, I thought that was just because my brother is only 4 years old and it's easier to joke around with him. But a few weeks later, my mom told me something that completely changed how I saw both of them. So 2 weeks ago, my mom asked me to sit down and explain that the reason she and her fiancé got engaged so quickly was that he had been offered a very good job and was planning to accept it. But because of that, they would have to move to another state. They planned to leave me here with my grandmother because my mom thought I wouldn't want to give up my life and move with them. However, I told her that I didn't mind moving if it meant I could stay close to my mom, since my dad had already abandoned me. But my mom tried to convince me that it was a bad idea because my school was here, all my friends were here, and it would be better for me to stay. I insisted that I wanted to go with her. Eventually, she just blurted out that she wanted me to stay with my grandmother because of Daniel. He only wanted to take my brother with them, since he's still small and you can still build a good relationship with him, while I was already too grown up and would never become his real daughter. And as it turned out, he didn't like the fact that I told my mom that 5 months is too little time to get engaged to someone you barely know. He believed that I was still mentally stuck in the time when my mom and dad were married and that I would never be able to get used to him. And my mom agreed with him. That's why she wanted me to stay behind and deal with my own life on my own. It hurt me deeply. My mom was supposed to be on my side and not abandon me just because Daniel wanted her to. It wasn't that I didn't want to live with my grandmother. She's a wonderful woman, and I love her very much. But I love my mom too, and that's why it was so hard for me. I tried to argue with her, but I realized it was pointless. Then I told her that I didn't want to wait until they moved, and that I wanted to go live with my grandmother that very day. Of course, it was impossible to arrange everything immediately, but a few days later I had already packed my things and was ready to leave. My mom tried to convince me that she still loved me, but in reality, she was only thinking about herself. During the last couple of days I spent at home, I didn't talk to my mom at all, and didn't even say goodbye to her on the day I left. Honestly, I didn't think it was necessary. The only person I said goodbye to was my younger brother, because I knew I would miss him terribly. Since then, I have been living with my grandmother, and she has shown me incredible compassion. For context, she is my mom's mother. I have absolutely no relationship with my other grandparents, which isn't surprising, since they barely had any relationship with my dad. My grandmother is incredibly kind and caring, and living with her turned out to be quite easy. I feel her genuine love and she believes that my mom acted terribly. Aside from the time it takes to commute to and from school, everything in my new place is going great. I stay in touch with my brother and call my mom every evening just to talk to him. We don't communicate with each other at all. And then 3 days ago I celebrated my birthday at home. To be honest, I didn't organize the celebration myself. My grandmother did. She invited a couple of my close friends from school, whom she found through my Facebook, as well as some relatives. It was a huge surprise for me, and the celebration lifted my spirits a bit, because I had been feeling very depressed after my mom sent me to live with my grandmother. But after we cut the cake, my grandmother announced the gift she had prepared for me. It was a complete shock. She said that for now, her lawyer would act as a trustee for the property. But as soon as I turn 18, the apartment will fully become mine. Those were the best news I had received in a very long time. And it never even crossed my mind to share this with my mom. But yesterday I found out that someone told my mom about my grandmother's gift. Probably one of the guests at the party. I don't know who, and it doesn't matter anymore. I was absolutely furious when she called me in the evening and said that she had heard about the gift my grandmother gave me. After talking to Daniel, they decided that he wanted to adopt me, If I could convince my grandmother to transfer ownership of the apartment to him. I don't know why, but she genuinely expected me to be happy about this news. Supposedly, this way I could finally move with them. But in reality, I was not happy at all. I told her that I would never do that and that she no longer needed to call me. After that, I ended the call. She called me back a few minutes later, but I didn't answer. Then she texted me. And this is what it said. I'm very sorry if it hurt you that I tried to live by Daniel's rules and adjust to him, but you have to understand that after my divorce from your father, he was the only one who truly stood by me. Of course, I had support from my family, but it's not the same. He was there for me emotionally and even financially. You don't know many things because I didn't want you to have a bad opinion of your father. But he is not the most generous person. The divorce settlement and the alimony I receive are absolutely negligible, and the child support is laughably small. I hope you haven't forgotten that your father was the main breadwinner in our family, not me. I was lucky that he left me the house, otherwise I wouldn't even be able to pay rent. Our lifestyle was always very expensive. You know that with him I never had to worry about money. But after he left, everything changed and I couldn't afford to feel that. Even taking extra shifts, I couldn't earn as much as he did. When I started seeing Daniel, he was the one who was there, the one who took responsibility. I know he isn't very kind to you, but that's only because he had past relationships where children from previous marriages became a stumbling block, and everything eventually fell apart. You need to consider his trauma as well. And besides, I knew that my mom would take perfect care of you, so I was confident I was leaving you in good hands. I didn't abandon you. You live with your grandmother, and you know she would never let you feel lonely. I just wanted you to think about my happiness too. And now that I've arranged everything so you can move with us, I want you to agree and do what Daniel expects of you so that you and I can be together. Your brother misses you very much too. I know you're angry, but I also know that you love me and I love you. So answer quickly. I love you. This message really made me stop and think for a moment, but the last part of it just enraged me. Just because my mom wanted to obey everything Daniel said, she expected the same from me. It was ridiculous, arrogant, and weak. And I thought that my mom had completely lost her individuality. So even though the message softened me a little at first, in the end it left only bitterness. Half an hour later, I replied that I wasn't going to do anything Daniel wanted, and that she could leave with him and leave me with my grandmother, just like she had originally planned. I had nothing more to say to her because honestly, her behavior disappointed me deeply. When I talked to my grandmother about this, she said that under no circumstances would she transfer ownership of the apartment to Daniel, because she barely knew him and definitely didn't trust him. She was sure that he would simply sell the apartment, and I wouldn't get a single cent from it. So in a way, it was a good thing that I refused my mom's offer. However, my mom was not going to accept my refusal. This morning, my mom showed up at my grandmother's house together with my brother. Luckily, I was at school when she arrived. As soon as I came home, my grandmother told me that my mom had come to speak to me in person about the offer she had voiced the previous evening, which I had supposedly ignored. I immediately clarified that I hadn't ignored anything. I had, in fact, replied to her message and made it very clear that it was not going to happen. I wanted her to stick to her original plan, because I was not going to convince my grandmother to transfer the property to Daniel. We don't trust him, and I explained that very clearly. So I don't understand why she was still pretending not to get it. I was very blunt and answered her in a harsh tone, asking, "But can you really blame me?" After that, my mom started crying and said that she was only trying to make everyone happy, but no matter how hard she tried, nothing worked out. I completely lost my temper when I saw her sitting there in the living room crying. In reality, I should have been the one crying because I was the one who had been abandoned by both parents. I told her to stop and said that she had turned everything upside down. She wasn't trying to make everyone happy at all. She was only trying to make herself happy and expected everyone around her to bend over backwards for it. And maybe everyone else was ready to tolerate that, but I wasn't. I have my own life, and I wasn't going to ruin it by chasing after her and trying to make sure she was okay. This stunned her, and shortly after that she left. Later I realized that she had blocked me. Now I feel guilty about what I said to her. So I want to ask, was I wrong for telling my mom that she is selfish and only thinks about her own happiness? So before we move on to the update and find out what happened next, I suggest you write your opinion in the comments and answer the author's question. Personally, it seems obvious to me the mother is clearly in the wrong here, and the author did the right thing. Moreover, most likely this mother will also ruin her own life. That's just how it feels to me. It seems like she will eventually be left with nothing because of this man. But of course, that's only my personal impression. Maybe everything will turn out fine for them. Update 1. Hi everyone. First of all, I want to thank everyone who took the time to comment on my first post. It really opened my eyes. And yes, I think there were many moments I hadn't even thought about before. It never crossed my mind that my mom's relationship with Daniel could have started before the divorce. It's possible that she only told us about it now because it was easier and more convenient for her that way. The divorce was already over, and no one would have suspected anything. To be honest, I hadn't even considered this because no matter what, I couldn't imagine my mom being capable of cheating. But now I'm not so sure. Maybe she is capable of it after all. In any case, it's no longer my problem, because she made it very clear that she doesn't want anything to do with me. The only thing that hurts me in this situation is that I can no longer communicate with my brother, and I miss him terribly. We always got along great, and it hurts to think that he might be Daniel's son, as many of you suggested. I try not to think about it, but now that people started writing such theories, it's becoming harder and harder to ignore these thoughts. I really want to know the truth, but I'm scared. Over the past couple of days after that post, I talked a lot about these assumptions with my grandmother. And although we still haven't come to a clear conclusion about what the truth is, it became very difficult for both of us to look at my mom the same way as before. I think that a conversation with my dad could clarify a lot, but I don't even know if he would want to discuss this with me. It has been 4 days since my mom came to see us, and we haven't had any contact since then. On the very first day she blocked me, and later my grandmother told me that my mom had blocked her too. That's quite ungrateful of her, to be fair. My grandmother is taking care of me without even asking my mom for child support, because she has her own money. She does it purely out of kindness and love for me. I can't imagine someone giving up their well-deserved retirement to raise a grandchild, but that's exactly what my grandmother did. I think my mom should be grateful to her for this, but instead she blocked her. I have accumulated a lot of anger toward my mom, and even more questions that I still don't have answers to. I just really hope that sooner or later the whole truth will come out. Final update. Hi everyone. I didn't think I would be writing another update, but a lot has happened since my last post, and I feel like I owe you all an explanation and a conclusion. After several days of complete silence, my dad finally contacted me himself. He said that he had been thinking a lot after I reached out and asked if we could talk. We met in person, and that conversation turned out to be one of the hardest moments of my life. My dad admitted that the marriage with my mom hadn't been perfect for a long time. They argued often, and there was a lot of emotional distance between them. However, he firmly stated that he had never cheated on her. Then, after a long pause, he told me something that completely shattered the image I had of our family. According to him, Daniel had been present in my mom's life long before the divorce. At first, my dad didn't suspect anything. Daniel was introduced as just a friend, and later as a colleague. But over time, my dad began to notice strange behavior, secrecy, and lies. When he confronted my mom, she denied everything. Still, the trust between them was already broken. Eventually, my dad said he simply gave up trying to save the marriage. He filed for divorce because he felt unwanted, ignored, and emotionally abandoned. He never had solid proof of physical cheating, but he believes the emotional affair had been going on for years. As for my brother, my dad told me something that left me numb. He said that there had been doubts even back then, but he chose to ignore them because he loved my brother and raised him as his own. He said that no matter what, my brother will always be his son. Hearing this made me cry. A lot. I didn't know how to process all of it at once. Part of me was relieved to finally hear the truth, but another part of me felt completely betrayed. After that conversation, I stopped trying to contact my mom. Not because I hate her, but because I finally understood that chasing answers from someone who refuses to take responsibility only hurts more. She made her choice, and now she has to live with it. My grandmother continues to support me, and I am endlessly grateful to her. She is the only stable adult in my life right now. I don't know what I would do without her. As for my brother, I still miss him terribly. I hope that one day we will be able to talk again, without lies, without manipulation, and without someone controlling our relationship. To everyone who supported me, thank you. Your words helped me see things more clearly, and gave me the strength to stop blaming myself. I now understand that I was never responsible for my mother's happiness. That was never my burden to carry. No matter what happens next, I know one thing for sure. I will build my own life on my own terms, without sacrificing myself for people who only think about themselves. Thank you for reading my story.